Whatever we have to say, we're going to say it for the world.
That's what we do here.
That's right.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted Energy. I'm your host, Nora Knople, and I'm joined with my co-host, Pat Jones. Hey, Pat, how's it going?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. Oh my gosh, Pat.
I know.
Where have we been?
We've been away
We've been
for
away.
over 4 months. I looked it up.
I know. A 4
And
month
I
hiatus.
was literally like, what? That can't be right.
I thought, oh my gosh, we certainly did something in June. That was the last. No,
No, I know.
no. It's
Yeah, it's
been
been
4
since
months
end
since
of
we've been on the air.
April. Yeah. So we probably have a few things to discuss.
Well, considering that anybody who watches the videos, right? Anybody who watches the videos can certainly probably see that Pat's background looks a little different than what it did before.
Yeah.
Something big has happened in the last 4
Something
months.
very big. I am in a new space. I moved in June, which that's hard to believe too, that it's been almost 3 months since I moved.
Right.
Yeah, so that's been a really big deal.
What she's saying, folks, is it's Pat's fault that we were on such a long hiatus. No.
Longer.
Longer. No,
Yeah.
and that was we kind of did our hiatus in a way. We did it intentionally
Yeah.
because I knew that Pat was prepping for a move, but when we broke the hiatus, you hadn't sold yet and hadn't
No. I
signed
don't
yet.
think, I'm
I
not
don't
even
think you
sure if
signed yet.
I don't think I had even found this house yet. I think it just, the way things work out, it just worked out that we were on a break and I had all this stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I know you've been doing a few things too in the last 4 months.
I've been a little busy in the last
Just a
4 months
couple.
also. Just a little bit.
Yeah. So your background might look the same, but
I'm in the same space.
you
I
have
am.
a lot going on too.
I
So
do. So the new house is treating you well.
it is. I love it. I moved to a new town and I love it.
No longer
And
across the pond from me.
no, I mean, there are some downsides, and that's one of them. A few little downsides, but that's the way it is in everything in life. You can't have it all.
You can't?
Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert.
Darn it.
I know, right?
Yeah, if only. I mean, maybe we can have it all. Maybe my all looks different than your all. Is that a possibility?
Well, yeah, and we can have it all. We just have to be happy with what we have, and then we have it all.
Wow. Mind blown. Yeah, she's gotten even more philosophical in the last 4 months.
Well, yeah, maybe because one of the things I did was a course on the Tao Te Ching, so I might, I might start talking like Lao Tzu or something. I don't know.
Very, very, very much like me grasshopper, you.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So
something like that.
Something like that. Well, I'm reading the Tao of Pooh.
I saw that somewhere on your maybe on Facebook somewhere.
Yeah.
And I probably commented right away, like, oh my gosh, that's my
We talked about it on the podcast, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen that book in ages. Let me just pull it out and take a look at it again, and forgot how much I enjoyed it. So
so you had read it before. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A
long time ago.
I just love it.
Yeah, so today's podcast is going to be a little bit differently structured than our normal seasons, just today's anyway. Because when we talked about kind of doing this podcast today, we were like, I posted that out there about, we're going to be talking about, what we did on our summer vacation, because it kind of
Yeah.
reminded me of that old essay, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
when you go back to school, and we're in back to school time right now. It's like,
That's what I was thinking too.
August 29th. Yeah. So Pat and her summer vacation, she was packing and unpacking and moving.
Yes.
And yeah,
And that's pretty much it.
that's pretty much it. We, how it
No,
is. You know how it is when you move. I mean,
I do now.
yeah, you do now for
I
sure.
had forgotten. And
How miserable it is.
now, yes, now it's like permanently etched in my mind, I think.
You're like, I'm not doing that again.
Holy moly. I hope not for a really long time.
I don't know about you. Did you get are all of your boxes unpacked in 4 months? Every last box?
No,
No.
no. Um, Close, pretty
Okay.
close. But the interesting thing to me has been, and it's that you say packing and unpacking, and I have to say that normally when we do podcasts, I don't think about what we're going to talk about at all,
Yeah.
but today I did a little bit. Like first thing this morning, I started thinking about it, like what word or words would describe, my summer or this time that I've been away. And one of
Yeah.
the things that I thought right away was packing and unpacking. And I started thinking about it in a energetic way, because that's what we do here
That's
on
what packing and unpacking is, right?
Unscripted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, when you think about it, it's really interesting. And it has been interesting. It's been a lot of work. There's no doubt about it, but it's been really interesting. And as I've packed and as I've unpacked, I've been purging a lot.
You realize that
And
there were things you didn't necessarily need.
right. And I
Yeah.
just didn't want to fill my new space with all this stuff. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And so I tried really hard for a long time, even before I found the house or anything. I had been trying to get rid of things and going through things and sorting and purging and goodwill and
Yeah. She put out there and said, "Hey, I've got some books. Would you want any of these?" I said, "All of them. Just bring them all to me." Because
yes.
I've
I
got
don't
more
even know
books
how
than I'll
many
ever
there
have.
were. There was quite a, there was a good sized box.
Mhm.
But so doing that before I moved, and then also as I've unpacked, I'm purging again, because I'm taking a third or fourth look at something and saying, I don't have anywhere to put this, first
Or,
of all.
yeah. Or why did I think I needed that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's why I'm not completely unpacked, because I'm taking time. When I unpack a box, I'm going through every single thing again. And okay,
Mm-hmm.
do I have space for this? Do I really want it? What's her name? Marie Kondo. Does this spark joy?
Yeah. It's either
And
a hell yes or it's a no, right?
yeah, so I feel like this is going to be more months continued process of because it's just the way it is. And if you want to be organized and kind of lighter and freer in your
Yes,
space, you got to purge. And
absolutely.
it's the same way with your mind, your heart, and your body.
I was going to say it truly is a metaphor for life, right? Because there's so
Yeah.
many things we go through in life that we pack, we stuff and we stuff and we stuff it in, and
Mm-hmm.
then we're just like, I can't take it anymore. It has to go somewhere, right? And that either
Yeah.
comes out in anger or frustration or crying or,
Yeah.
whatever. And then then we're forced to sit and unpack it
Yeah.
so we don't get overwhelmed again.
And when you are packing, when you are bringing something in or bringing something with you, is it something that you really want? That's something that makes you feel good, or, you know, whatever feeling you're going for. Is that what it does? And
Yeah,
so it's the same with your stuff as it is with you. So,
absolutely.
so I think it's been really an interesting part of this process for me. And it's been a really big deal. It's been very emotional. I left the place I've lived my whole adult life for 40 some years
Yeah.
and moved to a place that I've been to before, but it's totally new. And so it's a big thing.
Yeah, that is a big thing.
Mhm,
But it's
mhm.
also exciting, right?
Oh yeah.
Learning
Yeah,
about a new space that you're calling home now.
oh yeah, I'm having a blast. I am. I'm having so much fun discovering places, and it's really exciting. And I get all excited about, you know, oh, I found this little shop that has coffee and tea and you can get samples. And it's like, blah, 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 you know,
I love it.
it's so exciting about, I get excited about little things. So,
Well, same here. Same here. I get excited about little things, and I won't mention the name of the town, obviously, but I love the little town it's not really little. It's about relatively, I think, probably the similar size to the town that I live in or that we lived in.
mhm.
Um, but I love it. It's just quaint, and
Yeah,
when
yeah.
we came to visit, we found all kinds of little places that we hadn't visited before because we took a new route through and around to
Mhm.
get to where you were,
Yeah,
and so that made us take a even different route home. Let's go see what's at this end of this road because we'd never been down that way. And
yeah.
so we were out exploring too after we visited with you, and
Mhm.
found things and spent money, and I'm sure that county was quite grateful because she knows I left there with even more books. Um,
Oh, that's right. That's
yeah,
right. I forgot
I
about
love children's books, and if there's one thing that there's two things that my husband will tell you that I probably do have too many of, books and clothes. I was never a clothes person. Like, I grew up with no closet as a kid. I had one
Mhm.
dresser that I'd had since I was 4. I had that all the way through to my first marriage, that dresser, and then it became a kid's dresser. And then, so I was used to having very minimalistic, very simple clothes, but I've
Mhm.
always loved clothes. I love the design of them. I love fabric. I
Yeah.
like patterns and things like that. And so, when one of my guilty pleasures when 2020 was happening, we were all sheltered in space, in space, right?
Mhm.
In place, I kind of, pardon the expression, but I became a clothes whore. Um, I did. I shopped and
Yeah.
shopped. I wasn't
Yeah.
going anywhere. I was staying in my house like the rest of y'all with my pajamas on. But apparently, I needed clothes.
Yeah.
For impending vacations. That's what I told my husband. You know, when we finally get to go on vacation again, I'm going to need clothes to wear because
And it,
apparently people on vacation don't know that I don't dress like that all the time. So,
right. And it's so easy. It's too
well, and
easy.
it's fun. You feel good in new clothes, and
Mhm.
trying on new things. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm slowly outgrowing our closet, and I've had to take over an extra bedroom closet. And then,
Oh.
yeah, and so now I'm looking for bookcases because I bought a bunch of children's books when I went to visit Pat, and I as um, I don't remember where I heard this phrase from. I think it was actually from my friend's stepdad. And I hit a honey hole, as they would say, a
Mm.
sweet spot, and found a whole treasure trove of Dr. Seuss books. And as I've talked about before, I'm a writer, and I've always wanted, and I written
Mhm.
children's books before. So I really love children's books, and
Yeah. I do too.
I I saw that pile of them. I'm like, they're $1.29. Why would it be dumb to leave these here?
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that I've discovered. I didn't even realize how many I had. I mean, they were everywhere.
Mm,
And that's when I gave you those books, that's probably the first time I've gotten rid of books
mm.
ever. I mean,
Well,
well, usually I can't get rid of them, but it
I
was
know
one of
I'm the same
those,
way.
it was one of those, I just have to do something. I have to make an effort to pare this down a little bit. And then as I'm unpacking, there's a box here, a box there. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of books.
And me
Oh.
and in my effort to, you know, kind of declutter my energy space, like you were just talking about,
Mhm,
I
mhm,
I have too been going through some of my books. Probably not my children's books. Those are going to be a little more difficult, I think, for me to get rid of than some others. But so I will let you know that after I got your books and I looked through them and I picked the ones that I knew that I really, really wanted.
mhm,
Some of yours are actually going to I didn't get to tell you this, so we'll share it now.
mhm.
They're going to uh, a local business in Sandusky. So for people who are listening, and Pat may remember this, friends of the show, uh, Trent and Sarah, they have a coffee shop in downtown Sandusky called Mr. Smith's Coffee Shop, and
Okay.
I've held meetings and stuff there. They suffered a fire in February
Oh,
before
that's
before we
right.
took our hiatus, and they're still rebuilding and
Oh my
hopefully
gosh.
opening in the couple months. And Sarah put a call out on Facebook a couple weeks ago and said, "Hey, we had to throw away all the books in they had like a take one, leave one kind of
Okay.
thing." And she said they had to pitch all the books because even if they weren't fire damage, they were water damage or soot damage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I'm
does
sure.
anybody have books to donate? And I was like, oh, that's a perfect time for me to go through my books. And so,
Mhm.
as I was going through and trying to sift and sort of what I wanted to keep, a few of them, I think like four of the ones you gave me, are going to Mr. Smith to replenish their
Nice.
library. And I knew you'd
I
like
if
that.
I I'm glad to hear that because if I decide on more, I'll let you know.
Yeah, yeah. So, Pat and I always like to try to help our community however we can. And
Of
that's a
course.
small little way that we can make a difference in the lives of people, then I'm happy to do it. And I know that
Mhm.
I'm still gathering them, so I know they'll be appreciative of, being
Good.
able to build their library back.
I'm glad about that. Cool.
Yeah, because they do a lot of things for the community too, and they're good people. So I'm glad we could help them on behalf of
Nice.
Unscripted Energy.
Nice. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, awesome. So anything else new and exciting in Pat's world? You got a new house, a new town,
Mm.
getting
I
rid of
don't
stuff.
get rid of stuff. That's probably it as
Yeah.
far as new and exciting.
Well,
There's a
that's a
lot
plus.
of regular life that happened in the last 4 months too. That's
Did you
why
go on
like,
vacation? Did you get a time to take a rest?
oh, that's right. That was the other thing I was going to tell you because we have gone somewhere like little short trips like every month it seems like.
Oh,
And
nice.
I was going to tell you this because we've talked about racing before. We did a couple race things.
Mm-hmm.
Um Mike and the kids and I and the grandkids went to the truck race at Mid Ohio in
Fun.
July. And then we just went to Indy in middle of August.
Did you go to the Brickyard?
We did. We went to the Saturday Xfinity race
Oh, nice.
and we saw now anybody who knows what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about. We went to Cup qualifying and Xfinity qualifying, the Xfinity race, and we saw some of the there was an Indy race going on. They had all these different things
Yeah.
in on a Saturday. So we got to see lots of different kinds of racing.
Was
And
that your first time at Indy at the Speedway?
it was, and
It's something to behold, isn't it?
oh my gosh, Nora, I I maybe have not been so impressed with a cleanliness of a
It is.
venue or place like that.
Surprisingly so.
I'm looking around. I did not see one. I'm not exaggerating. I didn't see one piece of trash on this whole great big grass area where we were, and the place is absolutely huge.
It is.
And I'm looking around. I said something to somebody. I'm like, there is nothing on the ground. There's no trash. And then I saw
You should
this.
go to a 500.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
A
there
lot
were.
more people. There's a lot more
Yeah,
people
I
there.
mean, for the 500, there's hundreds of thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands of people there. Yeah.
I guess somebody said later that there was maybe like 70,000 people there.
That's pretty good size for that race,
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
But then I saw all these people cleaning up. And even when we were sitting on the lawn, somebody came by and asked us if we had any trash that we wanted to get rid of. And I'm like,
They have a
wow.
really good group of volunteer groups like Boy Scouts and things that come in and clean
Yeah,
up.
it was a really cool place.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got to go. Yeah, my first time I walked through the gates was a little overwhelming because I think it was right after the Boston Marathon bombing. And so
Oh,
security was even tighter than it,
yeah.
it ever had been. And I was right there with like 300,000 of my closest friends, like sardines.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure I could do that.
It was a lot.
That's too many people for me.
It was a lot. And then you get there
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my God, I'm in race Mecca right now, and it was a
Mhm.
little overwhelming the first time I went to the Indy 500.
Yeah,
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 but good. That's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. So that's been a couple of fun things that we've done, and I've been able to spend more time with the kids and grandkids, so that's the best.
That is the best. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing with us what you did on your
Yes,
summer vacation.
I want to hear. I want to hear all about what's going on with
What
you.
did the Noples do on their summer
Yeah,
vacation?
yeah.
What did we do? So in in end of April we wrapped up. I was starting to part of the reason for the hiatus. It's not all Pat's fault. Part of the
Thank
reason for
you.
you're welcome. You take some of the heat off of her. No, part of the reason for the hiatus was because I had opportunities for speaking engagements. And so from the beginning of May all the way through, and I'm not done yet, I have had a lot of speaking engagements, which has been
Yeah.
great. I mean, I love meeting new people and going to new cities. And so some of the speaking
Wow.
engagements were local, which is also fantastic because I got introduced to new groups that I probably wouldn't have previously been introduced to. I mean, I spoke to I think it was and if I get your group name wrong, if you guys listen, I apologize, but like the Northwest Ohio Association of Social Workers, they had me as
Oh.
a guest speaker to one of their monthly meetings. And so I got to go and speak to different groups like that, some different civic groups I went to speak to around the area. I have another one of those coming up. I'm speaking to the Huron Rotary here in a couple weeks. I got to go to one of their meetings and hear and listen to a fascinating talk about the upcoming eclipse next year from
Oh.
an astrologist came and talked at the Rotary Club in Huron, Ohio, and he's from the planetarium in Cleveland. And so he came
Oh,
and
neat.
talked about what you're going to expect. And it was
Hmm.
really fascinating. So it was I got a little bit of a precursor to the audience that I'm going to have in a couple of weeks, which was
Oh,
cool.
that's cool.
They invited me to come and have lunch with them and just enjoy the program. But on a bigger traveling note, outside of Ohio, in May, in May, I did go to Southern Ohio for a speaking engagement. And then in June, like back to back, I got home. I was literally home like 2 days and then went back out and we flew into Seattle and we went
Yeah.
to the inaugural Pacific Northwest Hypnosis Conference, which is co-hosted by another friend of the show, Jim Kellner, who's
Hi,
been on
Jim.
Hi, Jim. Jim's a friend of the show. He's been a guest on our podcast before. He's a hypnotist, a stage hypnotist, and he does see some clients out in the Seattle, Tacoma, Washington area. And so he and his co-host Anthony Glitch, for an inaugural convention, I thought they just did a stellar job putting it together. I got to see, my hypnosis peeps, which is always nice to see them. Got to visit a new city. So I've never been to Tacoma, Washington before, so that was fun. I didn't speak at the PNW, but we went out there and we visited and supported Jim and Anthony in their quest. So that's a lot of fun. And then, so that was in June, and then later on that month, I gone again. I had another speaking engagement that I did in Indiana, and then, let's see, what did we do then? Oh yeah. So then we come home, and my husband went to Syracuse for a conference in June, and he was literally home for 9 hours. We had to get back on a plane.
Oh my gosh.
And go to the world's largest hypnosis conference in Las Vegas.
Vegas,
And
yeah.
I presented at HypnoThoughts Live to my first nearly full room.
Awesome.
By count, there was only like 8 chairs that were empty, and people kept coming in the middle of my talk. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, people kept flooding into the room, and it was awesome energy. When I'm in that speaker mode, I'm just kind of, doing my thing. And my husband was in the front row, and he goes, "Did you even know that you got 3 ovations during your talk?" And I was like, "I heard the clap at the end. I didn't hear the other 2."
Wow.
So that was, I was there, but I wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, you were so in the moment. Yeah.
But here's the other thing, Pat, that I'll share with you that I did for the first time. Well, there's 2 firsts I did in Vegas. For the first time as a speaker, I took a note from the Pat Jones feedback that I got a couple years ago about my meditation practice, when you were like, you do so much better when you don't go off of a script, when you just wing it from your head. It's just something about it. And I was like, oh, wow, thanks for that. So I'm in my room. I rehearsed my presentation 3 times I have a thing on my computer. It's an automated thing. So it's synced to my slides. And so I can go on and it can tell me to stop saying too many times, or speed up or slow down or whatever. It asks, you'll put in the, I've got 50 minutes and I've got to get through this, and it'll pace you, and it kind of helps you time it out.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I rehearsed that thing like 3 or 4 times in my hotel room. When I was in Vegas, I would leave my friends and I go up. I need to get in a headspace to present later. And I did that like twice the day before, and then twice that morning. And then I got downstairs and I sat, and the audio video guys came, and they hooked me up and put the mic on me and put my mic pack on and hooked up my laptop, and people started coming in, and then more people started coming in. I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to have more than like, not that the 4 or 6 or 8, 12 people that have come to other talks weren't important, because I absolutely love that I got to speak to whoever. If you've heard me talk about this enough, and I know Pat knows this,
Yeah.
God sends me, the universe sends me who's supposed to be there. But more people kept coming in, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. And we were in a new space for the first time. So I wasn't used to, the facility, and, there was a lot of things that I thought that were going on in my head. And I hit the slide and I started talking, and the next thing you know, I'm just hitting slides and talking. I'm not even looking at my notes. I'm just hitting the slide and talking. Well, gosh, I would hope so. I'd rehearse that thing 4 times in 2 days.
Right.
But I just looked out in the sea of faces, and for the majority, they're my peers, right? It's my hypno family, really.
Yeah.
And I just started sharing my story. I started sharing my story about my life and why self-care is important to me and how it saved my life. And I'm just talking. I'm just talking to people. And I got to the end, and I won't out her in this. Some people know the story, but a very well-known hypnotist was front and center in my talk, and somebody I look up to in the hypnosis world, somebody whose work I followed, whose books I have sitting on the shelf over there, looking back at me the whole time, not losing my gaze. Like I'd look over and she's there, and I'd come back over here and look, and I'd come back to the other side of the room and she's there again. Just stayed on me. And when we left, there were all the when I got done, I was out in the hall, people were leaving the room and they were thanking me for how impactful my story was and for being brave enough to share that, and how their story resonated with my story. And then out comes the lady I was speaking about, and she was like, do you know you had me in tears?
Mm.
And it just touched me that, I touched her in such a way that it was impactful to her as well. And by the time I was left the room and went down about 3 hallways to try to put my laptop and stuff back in my hotel, the founder of Hypno Thoughts found me in the hallway and said, "Hold on a second, I want to talk to you." And I thought, uh-oh, this is where the shoe drops, right? And so he came over, and it felt really nice to hear him. He wasn't even in the room, but
Oh.
it was nice to hear that by the time I had meet and greet with everybody after my talk and walked myself towards the escalator to go back to my room, that word had gotten back to him that I had given my talk. And he said, "Do you know, especially this time of year, do you know why you continue to get invited back and why you're on my radar?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, because you're on my radar, because I see that you're doing things and you're making an impact on people. And that's really the whole reason I became a hypnotist, was to help people.
Yeah.
The accolades and stuff are fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I love getting the pats on the back, and I love getting the critique afterwards, when people are like, when you said this, I might have done it differently. I do like that. Um, and so, but the whole reason I got into this was to help people, and to hear people that I consider top in the business to say, "We recognize that you're helping people." To me, that's just it's
Yeah.
my why. It's everything,
Sure.
I get emotional about that because I know how hypnosis helped me, and I took a vow for myself 5 years ago that nobody was going to let hypnosis become, this woo-woo thing that we don't talk about anymore. That I was making it my platform to talk about the positive things that can
Yeah.
happen with it. So that was really cool. So that was my June, or my
Awesome.
July rather. And then I got to come home for a little bit. I came home for a little bit, spent some time with my family. Didn't get to see my kids as much as I want to, but or my grandkids, but we did get to go to baseball and
Mm-hmm.
and some activities. I have a grandchild in cross country who and also in cheer, so that slows down in the summer, but then baseball picks up a little bit. So we're
Mm-hmm.
winding that down now. And then yeah, I've been home for a little bit, and they just had the Michigan conference, which I didn't get to go to because I'm doing some other things for the um, state of Ohio's mental health and addiction services. I'm doing a training for them right now. I'm training peer
Mm-hmm.
recovery supporters for last week and this week. And then I also had a speaking engagement that was virtual um, for a group in Colorado um, that had to do with domestic violence. So I spoke on that last week, and that was to be able to share that story. It's not something I talk about very often to people. It's one of those things I keep kind of close to the heart and don't share a lot about, but to be able to talk to that particular group out in
Mm-hmm.
Colorado, um, really, it was just heartwarming that they even thought to ask me to share my story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to send that message to people that we get to choose whether or not we label ourselves as a victim or a survivor, and how we can empower ourselves by, we empower ourselves by calling ourselves survivor when we identify ourselves as the victim. then I feel like we empower the perpetrator. But
Mhm.
sometimes, unfortunately, we don't survive domestic violence, and that's the real truth.
Yeah.
And so being able to talk about my experience and hear their experiences was really, really something. And so, yeah, so that I'm winding down the speaking engagement tour, but I've got to go to some really cool places. Oh, I didn't talk about the other. I said I did two
Oh,
things for the first time in Vegas, didn't
oh
I?
yeah, yeah.
I kind of glossed over that. So the first one
And
was I've never.
I'm just so honestly, you just are so inspiring because it just makes me feel like this is what it means for one person and what a difference they can make. And you are making a difference in people's lives, and how you have taken this and not in a forceful way, but in a powerful way, how you've um, brought hypnosis to the people in your town and throughout the country and even globally, because I know you've done things um, on Zoom with people from all over the world. And it's, it just, to me, it just goes to show you that one person in what they put out into the world can make a difference.
That
And
energy, absolutely. Thank you for that. The energy we put out in the world absolutely has a ripple effect.
yeah,
I'm just one pebble in the pond, and that ripple
as
goes
we
on.
all are. Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
that ripple just goes, you never know where that ripple's going to end because it just goes out into infinity, and you never know who it's going to touch and how they're going to be affected and impacted. So,
Well, and how you've, because I over the last however many years that we've known each other, and these talks that we've had, that I know that you've had things and there's only been 2 or 3 people there, and then to grow into this phase of what you do, and have this the growth of the people that are there and that are hearing and experiencing what you do. And it's
mhm.
and that's a good way to look at it, is the ripples, how that's going to go out and just grow and grow and grow. And it's just, I love it because I know um what it is to work with you, and it's just
Mm.
amazing. So
Well, thank you. And likewise, I'm actually, when I'm in this training I'm doing for Ohio MPOS, um, two of the people in my group, small world. One of them is a fellow hypnotist. So when he popped on the screen in the morning, like I saw his name um, on my roster, and then I saw him pop in the morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I know who that is. And so we kind of joked. I said, I bet we have some of this very similar friends. And he was like, I bet we do. And we do. We have like 19 people in common. After I went that night, when I looked on Facebook, I'm like, yep, we're all hypnotists. But the
uh-huh.
other thing too, I'll point out is the second person who is has a like, she's not a hypnotist, but she does. I mean, she does use um, some of it in her practice. But I always do a check-in with them. What did you do for self-care is what I ask them in the morning. What did you do for self-care last night? And I got so excited because one morning she came on and she goes, oh, I did, I think I don't remember how she worded it. I think she said something like, nobody's going to really know what this is, but she said, what I do for self-care at night to help bring me some peace and balance is Qigong. And I was like, I know what that is.
What?
Yeah. Well, I didn't do that on camera. I was professional, but I was like, I know
You
what
have
that
to like
is.
stay
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, stay cool, be professional. But I was like, I know Qigong. And I
Oh,
did say that to her later. I said, I know Qigong. I said, my podcast co-host is a Qigong instructor. And she was like, no kidding. So this is probably the
oh,
first I've done this particular training for the state of Ohio for a while, for a few years now. And this is probably the first group that I've had that's had, woo-woo people like me in the group. Um, So that's kind of
That's
just
always
goes to
nice.
show you. Well, I mean, it just goes to show you that
Mhm.
what we do is not woo-woo. It
Well,
absolutely
it's
helps
growing.
people. It's
It
growing.
it's yeah, it's
But
coming. Hmm.
it's not, and I say it's not woo-woo in the way that people are like, oh, it's just out there. It doesn't help people. It's a band-aid. It's a placebo or whatever. It's not.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
not. It absolutely helps people recover and be well. And so I thought that was really
yeah.
cool that somebody
That
else in the
is
world knew
cool.
what that was.
I like that a lot. Cool.
So the other thing that I did, so the first thing I did in Vegas for the first time was I went off school. I
Hmm.
didn't use my notes. I presented off the cuff, and I've never done that before.
That's amazing.
And then the second thing I did was I went ziplining down Fremont Street. If anybody knows anything about Vegas, it's the old part of Vegas where a lot of action happens. We'll just say that. I was 11 stories in the air on a zip line, held
Oh
from my back,
my gosh.
face down, like Superman. Um, but my husband went with me. And fortunately for me, I have some skills of being a hypnotist. Don't know if I should say fortunately in this case, but it served a purpose as being a meditation teacher and a hypnotist. So if you've never zip lined, for those of you listening, if you've never zip lined on at all or on Fremont Street in Las Vegas, um, it's it's
Sorry.
it's quite interesting. Um, I'm 11 stories up in the air, so everybody looks like ants. You know, you don't really, they can
Oh
see
my
you, they
gosh.
can see you flying over their heads, but, and you stop and you look like, wow, what's that? Just got us intrigued a couple years ago to go do it. Um, but my mat, so they have this thing, it's on a, like kind of like a scissor jack, so to speak, like it raises and lowers. So it
Mhm.
lowers so that you can lay on it on your belly and they can hook you all up to the safety stuff. And then they raise it up, to the platform up so that when they open the thing and they let you go and that you're
My heart's pounding
just listening to it. Well,
yes.
I will spare you the details about how I almost had a heart attack because my they one person was hooked. I won't give you the details, but one person was hooking up my husband, another person was hooking me up, and the person hooking me up was very confident. You could tell, like she was like pulling and snugging and hugging, and she was very quick, but you could tell she'd been doing it. You know what I mean? Like she
Yeah.
knew her stuff.
Knew what
And
she
I
was
look over
doing.
at my husband, and there's a guy who's working on my husband's safety stuff, and he's going, um, uh, not very confident.
Oh
Let me,
my.
uh, and the lady who was working on my safety equipment saw the panic in my face and went over and told the guy, move. And she hooked my husband up.
I'll
That's
take
like,
it from
"Oh,
here.
thank you so much." Um, but anyways, the hypnotist came into play because once they got me up there and they hooked me into that stuff, I am no longer in under my own control, except for the fact that I know at this moment I can scream and go into hysteria and they can remove me from the premises. That was an option. Um, so
That was an option.
that was an option. That's not an option I chose. My mat had all these perfect little symmetrical different color polka dots on it. And I'm laying there dangling above this mat and I went into trance.
Really?
Purposely went into trance because I was like, you need to go limp.
Wow.
You need to relax because they just got done telling you at the end of this, it's going to be a big jerk. And if anybody's heard me talk about, you know, some of the physical things I've been dealing with, and I know if our friend PT Patty listens to this, she knows that I went ziplining. Um, Probably wouldn't have been the best choice or the first option for my physical therapist to say, with my cervical spine issues, why don't you go ziplining in Vegas?
Yeah.
Because that sounds like a fantastic idea. Um, but
Genius.
but I overcame that stuff, right? We know that I've healed from that, and so I was like, I'm out here. I'm going to do it, right? Um, And so I felt comfortable, but when I was up there and was getting ready to go, I was not comfortable over this. It was snug. I was not loose and limp. I was very rigid, and I knew that if I got to the end and they said, you know, it's going to jerk to stop you, that if I held that posture and was very tight, I was
something
going to cause myself some harm.
yeah.
So I went into trance, and I went out and light trance and got myself loose so that I didn't hurt myself, and I didn't hurt myself. And got to the end. But you can definitely tell from the pictures when we're flying through the air.
I've seen the pictures.
My husband is having the time of his life. His
Yes.
mouth is open. He's screaming. His arms are out in front of him.
Yahoo!
He's very much enjoying himself. Then there's the pictures of me.
Nora, not so much.
Nora was not having a good time. My face does not look like my husband's and the joy that he was having. I was very much like, get me off this damn thing. My arms were very straight, kind of like I was trying to stop myself in midair. I think that's what it looks like. Whitney's like, maybe I'll post the picture on our Facebook page, but it looks like I'm trying to stop myself in midair.
Again.
Yeah.
I just know at the time when I saw it, because I had talked to you and you had told me about it, and I just laughed because I thought, wow, somebody's having a good time and somebody's not.
somebody was not enjoying herself. 11 floors in the air.
Oh man.
But but I mean, I got off of the ride, or I got off, they unhooked me, we got down, and my husband was like, yeah, that was great, that was exhilarating. He was like, what'd you think? I said, well, I've done it and I don't have to do it again. And he was like,
I have
okay.
I've conquered.
I didn't want to I didn't want to burst his bubble. He was absolutely had the best time and loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
It was fun. I just don't need to do it again.
I don't believe you.
Okay. It was all right.
No, I'm just kidding.
It was all right. It was ziplining's not my thing. It's not. If I was meant to be a bird, God would have given me feathers.
I think in a previous podcast way back when we talked about, maybe it was on fear, and I don't like heights.
I have a fear of falling.
No way.
I have a fear of falling. I don't mind being up high necessarily. I have a fear of falling. And so when I got up there, for some reason I didn't have a fear of falling as we were going 35 miles an hour down Fremont Street. I didn't. I don't know why. That fear was gone.
Just incredible to me.
It was the strangest. I had my biggest fear when I was up there was let my husband get to the other side. Like I was more worried about hoping that his safety was okay.
Yeah, that probably took your focus off yourself being concerned.
Yeah, I'm up here, I'm strapped in, we're just gonna go and I'm gonna get to the other side. I just manifested that. Like I'm like, we're just gonna get to the other side safely. That's what we're gonna do. Yeah. So it was, I don't need to do it again. We have zip lining here that looks fabulous through the woods and trees, tops and stuff out in Oberlin.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, I
don't need to do that.
I just don't have any desire to do anything of a daredevil nature. I don't need it.
Yeah, that's probably as much of a risk as I'm willing to take at this point in my life. I certainly have many other lived and learned experiences where I was a detriment to my own health, and I don't have a desire to do that again. So I'm just not that I'm not that big of a risk taker, I think.
I'm not either.
At all. But my husband, if you follow us on Facebook, he's ridden over 220 some miles an hour in an Indy car. He's now ziplined down Fremont Street. I don't think there's much that Chris Knople probably wouldn't do.
Wouldn't try.
Yeah. I think he's definitely the more adventurous one in our relationship when it comes to that stuff. But me, I'm just like, I'm happy to sit back and watch everybody have fun, that
Mhm.
gives me joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gives me joy. But
Yeah.
no, I don't
And
need a zip line again.
everybody's different, Some
Yeah, and
people
like
just love that, and
I see pictures of like friends going out like the Grand Canyon, they have this beautiful like glass walk where you can walk out, look down. No,
mm-mm,
that I won't be doing that.
mm-mm.
Nope. I'll be happy to just
That gives me
out and see what I can see from right here.